Tonight we'll be talking about protein. Well, we're talking about blood. Okay, so I know most of you think maybe blood. I know enough about blood, and I don't need to know more about the blood. But I just kind of try to change your mind tonight. That is one of my goals. Um, Blood, like everybody understands, is almost the essence of life. Without blood, we cannot survive. But I'm from kind of different background, and in Asian cultures or Asian countries, blood was rather commonly used in maybe savory preparations or even medicinal purposes. And as a matter of fact, this is maybe for some of you might be shocking here, but when I was a kid, I was born in 1960, and the Korean War was ended in 1953, and it started in 1950. So the war lasted 3 years, and in a small peninsula, and 3 years of war with the communist countries, plural, and then the UN. There's 17, 18 countries kind of joined in UN, and they all came to Korea, helped out the war, and that lasted for 3 years. The country was pretty much devastated. So I was born in 1960, 7 years after the war was over. And I guess most of the people in Korea were poor. So one of my favorite snacks when I was growing up is blood tofu. I don't know how many of you have tasted blood tofu, and it's still used in many of the dishes in Asian countries. And so the blood was kind of commonly used. And but when I studied more about the blood, and I also learned that Asian countries are not the only countries that use blood in their dining tables. Some people in British or maybe European countries are also kind of commonly use the blood. So I guess blood is very critical, and is also kind of commonly used. But one thing that I learned or I found it kind of interesting is in here, America, I don't think we are using blood in our, uh, on our table menus. That's kind of interesting. But a lot of people also misunderstand that when you go to nice steak restaurants, when you cut your steak, there is a kind of red juice coming out from your steak. A lot of people misunderstand that is blood. That is not blood. In, I guess, the US FDA or what's the other agricultural department or something, and the blood is not actually formally allowed to use in food preparation. So that juice is myoglobin, and it is a protein coming from tissue, and it's normally clear, but it is exposed to the air, it turns into red. So the function of that is actually carrying oxygen to different tissues in the body. And so a lot of people misunderstand that as blood, but I'm just telling you that when you cut the steak, juice coming out is not the blood. So anyway, that's kind of the blood, but I just want to kind of share some statistics that I found. This is rather very interesting. So going back to CDC reports, about 681,000 people die in each year caused by cardiovascular disease. And then about 610,000 people die due to cancers. You know what? The third leading death in this country, it's actually blood-related issues. Each year, 350,000 people die caused by blood-related health conditions. And I hope by now I have your attention, and maybe you can put a little better or more interest in my presentation for the next few minutes. Worldwide, actually, there are almost like 4 million, 5 million people die in each year due to any health conditions related to the blood issue. And so this is a serious condition. It is, if back to the United States, 350,000 is about 50% more than the death caused by accidents or injuries. So this is a real statistics here. 350,000 people each year die because of the blood-related issue. So if this is a kind of alarming statistics, then we really need to pay more attention in the blood health. Most of you know that I'm coming to this industry from scientific background, and I used to teach at the Utah State University. So I understand scientific world really well. So now coming to this industry, and I do have a great respect for what you do. And I believe a holistic approach is the ideal health remedies. And but some areas I understand that allopathic medicine is advanced, and we have to give them some credit as well. But one thing, when it comes to the blood, modern medicine or allopathic medicines is a little bit ahead of us. And so when it comes to this blood-related issue, even though there are 350,000 people dying each year, but I don't know that many holistic practitioners are paying attention on blood issues. So tonight, I would like to kind of change that as well. 2019, when you came to our annual seminar, I introduced a product called HemoPure. And I understood the importance of the blood and blood health. And somehow around that time, in my neighborhood, there are about three rather large kind of the communities where only the seniors are allowed to live in those communities. And for some reason, quite a few seniors that I knew of died due to this blood-related issue. And because of that issue, I kind of devoted myself to know more about, blood health and blood-related health issues. And in 2019, I introduced a HemoPure product. HemoPure product, as you see the label, it is about the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is part of the red blood cells. Of course, the main function of the red blood cell, we're not here to talk about red blood cell, by the way. So these are the main function of the red blood cells. So most importantly, of course, it carries oxygen to different, the tissues of the body. Without oxygen, of course, we cannot survive. Okay. So when I was formulating HemoPure products, I was really hoping that one product could cover whole spectrum of the blood. But then realized when I was doing my research, it was almost impossible to do that because of the very distinctive roles and functions of the different portions of the body, of the blood. So I just settled with one product that will cover red blood cells in 2019. So I continued my research, and this year we added another product called PPR. PPR stands for plasma protein resilience. Plasma protein is, of course, found in the blood, as you can see here. And this separation can be done by a very simple laboratory procedure, just centrifuge. And if you put some blood samples in the transparent vial and you centrifuge blood samples, and then you can see these distinctive separations. Upper portion, which is also shown in yellow color, is the plasma of the blood. And plasma is about 55% of total volume of the blood. And then if you look at the plasma, and then of course 91% of the plasma portion of the blood is water. Okay. And then of course, when you centrifuge the blood sample, red blood cells kind of sitting on the bottom of the tube, because red blood cells is heavier, or just because hemoglobin contains iron. And so iron, of course, is heavier. So that's why it's how they kind of separated in this way. Now, when you look at the plasma, what comes to your mind? I think some people say plasma center. Plasma centers are popping up everywhere right now. It has become multi-billion-dollar business. And it's much different than blood donation. They call it plasma donation, but because it takes a little longer than donating the blood, so they usually compensate your donation by about $30 to $50, depending on where you go. Blood plasma is a very valuable item because a lot of people depend on blood plasma therapies. And blood plasma or plasma protein so far has not been synthesized. So it only comes from donors. And that's why it is very valuable. And some people have to depend on plasma therapy for the rest of their lives. And some therapies cost like 150,000 a year. So this is very, I guess, expensive commodity right now. Plasma, when you go to the plasma center, they collect about 800 milliliter of the plasma. And while they're pulling your blood out of your body, and they immediately separate, the plasma and then put the rest of the blood back to your body. And unlike, the blood donation, you can't do it less than 8 weeks. You have to wait at least, 8 weeks or 2 months. But somehow plasma donation, you can do every 48 hours if you want. So you can do about twice a week. That's why, unfortunately, some people just go to the blood plasma donation to make some extra income. Well, scientifically, or maybe the people who run these centers, they said you'll be perfectly fine. Body will replenish your plasma protein in 48 hours. Okay, rather than we going through some physiological or biological aspect of a blood plasma protein, which might be better fit in college class situations, but I know that you are practitioners. So I changed some slides, and I would like to focus on some clinical aspects of blood plasma protein. And then later on, if we have more time, then we can go back and then we can kind of go over physiological or biological aspects of blood plasma protein. Okay, so number one. Okay, of course, you can use a kinesiology or you can use EDS systems to determine that your clients or your patients are needing of repair of the blood plasma protein. Okay, those are all, viable, procedures. But I would like to talk about some signs or some red flags that signify that your clients or your patients are suffering from blood plasma protein malfunctions. Okay, that's kind of next few slides I would like to talk about it. Number one, vision change. Okay, so when your clients come to your office and they complain, or complain is not a good word, I'm sorry, they share their conditions with you by saying, all of a sudden I have some vision changes, so they were seeking for some consultation for that condition. Okay, number one, you maybe think maybe we have eye product, or you maybe recommend a vitamin A product, and so on and so forth. Those are all good. But you may want to consider this PPR, because when your blood plasma proteins are not functioning well, and then you have a very immediate increase or elevation of blood pressure. And of course, your blood pressure will have such big impact on your visions. If not treated for a long time, you're going to have to actually suffer from glaucoma. Okay, so now you have one more consideration when you have to address the vision changes. Again, I'm not saying that the blood plasma protein is the only reason your clients and your patients are experiencing vision change. And so this could be one of the maybe the reasons why they're experiencing vision problems. And this is the beauty of holistic medicine. Allopathic medicines, the reason why we are maybe superior over allopathic medicine is because we look at health signs from various directions. That's why we call it holistic medicines. But unfortunately, allopathic medicines, they have only myopic visions when they look at some kind of health conditions, and they only try to treat only one thing. So just here, just when you have to deal with the vision issues, please consider and this blood plasma conditions. And I can kind of go a little bit longer explanation why, because one of the blood plasma proteins, by the way, there are so many blood plasma proteins. There are about 30,000 blood plasmas already characterized, and scientists are still finding additional blood plasma protein. I mean, let me say now blood plasma protein as BPP. Okay, so I don't have to say all three words. Okay, so and they discovered several hundreds of BPPs, even though they're not completely characterized or maybe isolated, but they're still finding more BPPs now. And these are also utilized as maybe some kind of health assessments or diagnostic tools. And that's why people like Elizabeth Holmes, like a few years back, a woman in Silicon Valley, she was also known as a female Steve Jobs. And her theory was well sold to various people because of that kind of similar things. Hey, these is a good markers, and these are real indicators for health conditions. So anyway, so BPPs, and there's so many different BPPs. Okay, so the albumin is the key roles of albumin is holding the moisture from the tissue. So as the blood kind of is flowing through the blood vessels, and this albumin is responsible to pull some water, moisture, H2O, from the tissues back to the blood vessels. If albumin is not functioned properly, of course, the blood viscosity will be thickened, and then, of course, once it's thickened, you will have blood pressure problems. Blood pressure problem is just one, and you will have so many different additional problems as well. Okay. Number two, thrombosis of the blood coagulations. Blood coagulations, this is kind of like a double-edged sword here. Okay, if your body is not coagulating, bleeding, and then you'll bleed to death. Okay. On the other hand, so if your body coagulates too much, then you'll have all kinds of problems: stroke, heart failure, the brain functions, or embolism, and all these problems were caused by blood coagulant. So it's kind of double-edged sword here. So BPPs are controlling both ways. So the homeostasis of a BPP is very critical. You don't want to have too much, you don't have under. Okay, so this is one good example. So thrombosis, of course, is the blood coagulation process, and this is done by the fibrinogen, and which is another blood plasma protein. Okay, so again, another important role of the BPP. Okay, heart failure, of course, I just briefly mentioned that if your blood viscosity is too thick, then of course you will have a heart problem. Bone densities. When we talk about the bone density, you talk about the calcium phosphorus balance, and vitamin K, all these things, all these important constituents for healthy bone density. Guess what? Blood plasma protein carries those vitamins and amino acids and so on and so forth. So without blood plasma protein, even though you are taking the most advanced, most sophisticated calcium supplements, guess what? You are wasting good calcium supplements. And another important is calcitonin is another hormone that is very important in bone density, and is calcitonin hormone, is also carried by BP. So again, bone density without the healthy BPPs, you're not going to achieve strong bone density. Okay, infection, cytokine. Cytokine is controlling the infection and inflammation and so on and so forth. And guess what? Cytokine is also controlled by BPP. It's called the cytokine binding protein, which is part of the BPP. And so without the cytokine, of course, and you will have difficulties to fight infection. Also, oh, by the way, immunoglobulin. Without immunoglobulin, you're not going to fight against the pathogens. And this immunoglobulin is also BPP. Again, this is very important. And again, all these conditions that are related to malfunction of a BPPs is not my opinion. These are all very well documented and researched. And that's why I put a little bit underneath this source of my presentation here. Okay, kidney. Okay, so when you have too much of BPPs, and they're usually kind of going down through the bloodstream, and then the kidney kind of filter them out. But usually those PPPs are not well filtered out. And so usually kind of settled or deposited in the kidney. And once it's built up too much, and your kidney function will be very compromised. And that's why another report that I read about the relationship between kidney functions and BPP. So, I think I probably covered enough on the blood pressure change. Okay, the number 8, change in appetite. So when you speak about appetite, you're talking about two important hormones, ghrelin, we call it hunger hormones. Okay, so ghrelin make you feel your hunger and make you want to eat some more food. And on the other hand, we call it leptin. Leptin is a fulfilling hormone, I guess you can say it. And so if you have leptin hormone, then you feel kind of fulfilled. So you don't want to eat anymore. So, and these two hormones also is controlled by BPPs. So if you are dealing with the malfunction of the BPPs, and then you will experience appetite change. Okay, and maybe some people might be good things when you try to lose weight, but on the other hand, what about leptin then? So my bottom line is you really maintain healthy BPPs, so you can control ghrelin hormones and then also leptin hormone as well. Okay, or on the other hand, some clients come in and say, hey, I would like to lose some weight. I tried this, all these things. I don't succeed with my programs. Do you have any other suggestions? Maybe you may just want to look at the DCP, our product PPR. There may be the blood plasma proteins are not working very well. So their hormones are not delivering, to the targeted organs and so forth. Okay, so. Okay, and then headache, of course, headache. When you have thickened blood, you will have a headache. And also, I mentioned that cytokine. If your cytokines are too active because you don't have enough cytokine binding protein, which is again PPP, and then you have too much kind of cytokines floating around, and then you will have chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation is going to cause severe headache, anxiety, and short of breath. Okay, so this cytokine binding protein is called, if I remember correctly, is called alpha-2 macroglobulin or something like that. Again, that's another BPP. Libido. Okay, I don't know if you thought about libido with this BPP, but there is scientific report that says, and if you have a malfunction in your BPP, you will have very difficult to utilize your testosterone, okay, for men. And of course, for a woman, estrogen and all these are controlled and delivered by BPP. So again, this is scientifically reported. So, okay, let's see what's next here. Lack of energy. Okay, so when you think about lack of energy, then why? Because BPP is also responsible for carrying that glucose to TCA cycle. That's another important role. I mean, and also another kind of heavy, dense, the energy storage is fatty acid. Fatty acid is broken by epinephrine hormone. And epinephrine hormone is also controlled by BPP. So that's another important reason. Okay, another um, hormone, glucagon. Glucagon breaks down, the glycogen, and also important hormone for glycolysis. It is also controlled by BPP. So your carbohydrates and fatty acids are all controlled by BPP. Okay, and then one more important thing: insulin. Without insulin, how are you going to provide energy or glucose to TCA cycle? Okay, insulin is also carried by BPP. See, this is it's incredible. Okay, and then of course edema. Of course, we just mentioned that about albumin pulling the moisture from the tissue, and if they don't do it, then of course then you'll have edema. Alzheimer's disease. There's a PubMed. There's quite a few actually studies have shown that Alzheimer's disease is also um, stimulated or encouraged or by lack of BPPs. Okay, and that's a long kind of pathways, but let's kind of keep it that way. That goes with the number 14, mental health. Okay, depression. Of course, depression when you don't have enough oxygen in your brain because of the thickened blood vessels and also hyperactive, the cytokines, and you will have depressions too. So, okay. And now like textbook type, the blood plasma. And right here, you can see right there, protein is it's on so forth. Pretty much kind of covers what I have said. And rather than, let's keep going here. That's okay. And we mentioned that different kind of, the blood plasma proteins. Okay. Albumin is the most abundant one, followed by globulin, and globulin has alpha, beta, and gamma. Alpha, actually in alpha globulin, there is alpha 1, alpha 2, and so on and so forth. Fibrinogen is important for the blood coagulation, and the hormones, enzymes, I all mentioned that, so, okay, here, everything right there. I already mentioned that, okay. Also important for the ion transportation, and transferrin is very important for attacking the pathogens. Okay, lipoprotein is also controlled by the BPP. So when you are trying to achieve, the HDL, LDL balance, and one more product that maybe you may want to consider is a PPR. See if blood plasma proteins are functioning properly. And then vitamin D binding protein, and it works kind of both ways. And to have a proper function of a BPPs, you have the vitamin D, but also BPPs are the carrier of vitamin D as well. Vitamin D, as we talked about it during our past seminar, vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. So it cannot be dissolved in the water. So that's why it's very difficult, almost impossible to be transported to different organs of the body. And so plasma protein comes in and they become vehicle for vitamin D, even though they need the vitamin D to make healthy BPPs, but also BPPs are used as a vehicle for vitamin D. Okay, so we pretty much mentioned pretty much everything from clinical aspects. Okay. Do we have this? I already mentioned the vitamin D, so okay. And folate is also very important for healthy blood plasma functions. Okay, so maybe we can stop here and open for question and answers. Do we have any questions, Brett?
Well, this one for me is going to be really good because I do PRP injection. So PRP is platelet-rich plasma. So we draw the blood, spin it, we take out the plasma and the buffy coat, and then so that's after we've spun it, and then we're able to inject that in around either joints or other areas that helps. Basically, I kind of tell patients it's like parachuting in firefighters into the center of a storm. So this I think is going to be beneficial for me as I'm planning to do something like that with a patient. Give them a good month on this product to help clarify, make strong, bring the cytokines in, bring the growth factors, supporting of the stem cells. For me, that's going to make that PRP I think even much better.
Thank you, Dr. Giles. Thank you for sharing that information with us. But even though at the beginning of my presentation, I kind of explained how important blood plasma proteins are. But when you look at the really allopathic medicines, there aren't very many options out there. I think they call it like a Gammaplex 10 is the only product that I can think of. And I know there's about 2-3 products out there. And they are mainly for the people who are suffering from compromised immune system. But that's to support overall health of blood plasma protein. I don't think any allopathic medicines out there. Of course, in holistic medicines, we don't have any at all. We're the only company that produce or that formulate, this blood plasma protein product. So I think that those two together, not only it purifies blood, but also kind of supply necessary nutrients and the pH balances and also kind of enhancing their functions. So that's the kind of the purpose of these two the products when I formulated those two. So as I working on the sepsis, then I also learned additional informations and concerns that are associated with the malfunction PPRs, so BPPs. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So that's another important. That's why blood is known as a complete food. It's kind of little Halloween tomorrow, and no wonder why vampires they survived, but just drinking blood only, because blood is a complete food. I'm not recommending you to drink the blood, by the way. Okay, especially animal blood. I mean, it's a tofu and stuff that I ate. It's okay, but no raw blood, because there's quite a danger kind of, in there, because animal blood or even animal plasma is much higher, much higher in the immunoglobulins and anything with immune reactions. Thank you. And if you have any other questions, feel free to call me. Then we can talk a little bit more about the blood plasma proteins. Thank you.